So what's your podcast about?
Superheroes.
It's a little geeky, but I think you guys are gonna like it.
Try not to be too geeky.
No, I can't promise that.
Should we begin?
It's a bird. It's a plane. It's the Geek and You Shall Find podcast. And now, your hosts, Kelsey Dickerson, Brad Fay, Kate Fay, and Noah Berlin.
Hold on to your butts.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Geek and You Shall Find podcast. We are back talking about House of the Dragon, which just hit the halfway point on the series, midway through the second season, and it had probably the craziest and most impactful episode yet. So we, the Superhero Faces team, are going to break it all down with you. We've got the face of Superhero Faces, Kelsey Lee D. We've got the lore master himself, the director of the Geek and You Shall Find podcast, Brad G. Fay. And we've got the mother of dragons and Parkers, Kate, and another appearance by Little Miss Parker right here. So we're happy to be breaking it down with you. We can't wait to start talking about it. But before we do, I'm going to need to do a little mental health checkup on you guys. That was tough to watch at the end of that one. How are you all doing?
What was the first thing I texted you, Noah?
I am unwell is what you said. I am unwell. Yeah.
I'm still unwell.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was fine. The first time we watched it, I thought you guys were like like Kate being like, I can't. I'm like, dude, it wasn't that serious. Who cares? Like, it's not like we were invested in any of these dragons. But watching it the second time was way tougher. Like, just like when like Rhaenys gets that little look back, you just pick once you know it's coming. I think there were like way more things that I'm like, okay, yeah, this is like hitting different. The first time I was good. The second time it kind of messed me up a little bit.
Oh man, I was like already emotional yesterday for whatever reason. And like watching that, I could not stop crying. And like I woke up this morning looking like I got stung by bees. Like my eyelids were so swollen.
Damn.
I'm like, everyone was talking, you guys were all talking about doing a rewatch, and I was like, no, like rewatch not happening for me. How are you feeling, Noah?
Yeah, you know, the episode was awesome. So I'm like hype about that. But it was tough to watch, the little emotions. I think they did such a great job, and we'll get into it a little bit later, but they did such a great job of kind of humanizing the dragons and like letting them show emotions and the bond between the dragons and the riders. I think it just made what we saw to be just so much more, I don't know, heart-wrenching a little bit, because you know, we all, at least the four of us, we're on Team Black. So theoretically, we're rooting for Rhaenys there. We're rooting for her dragon Meleys. But like, I don't want to see, I mean, maybe Vhagar, but I don't want to see any of these dragons get hurt.
Yeah, it is really tough. And like, I mean, you just can't help but think about your own pets. Like, you know what I mean? I know like the bond between Targaryens and their dragons is so much deeper because, you know, it's like they basically share like the same mind and emotions and stuff. But like, oh God, it just hits you right where it hurts.
Yeah, it does.
It was really tough.
Well, we'll dive deep into that scene specifically and the whole episode, obviously. But this episode is getting a lot of critical acclaim. A lot of the fans are just talking about how great it is, and it's being compared up there with some of the best Game of Thrones episodes. So I'm curious where you guys stand. Do you think this one is that good? I mean, where would you rank this episode, which is called The Red Dragon and the Gold?
Well, I have strong opinions about it.
It's up there. Like, it's the best of this series, maybe. And, you know, it might wiggle its way into the conversation of Game of Thrones. But, like, Game of Thrones just had so many different, like, story threads and stuff that, like, I don't know. There was just so many more well-developed characters that we loved on Game of Thrones. And, I mean, this, you know, it's season 2. So, you know, it's hard. Like, if you pulled up the list of what were the best Game of Thrones episodes, I would bet most of them are later on episodes because you've been invested in this character for so long, and you know, because you want to know where this character is going. It's really hard to do that like midway through season 2. So I give props to this episode, but I don't know if it's up there with the top Game of Thrones episodes.
Yeah, right now on IMDb, it's ranked as a 9.7 out of 10, and it's the 5th highest rated episode in all of the Game of Thrones franchise, behind The Winds of Winter, The Battle of the Bastards, Hardhome, and The Rains of Castamere, which was the Red Wedding. So it's just kind of crazy to see. I mean, I'm happy about it. I'm happy that people are texting me that don't normally text me after the show, knowing we do the podcast, knowing that we watch this show, and people are all hype about this one. And if this is the episode that really solidifies, like that's that moment that gets me fully in, then that's great.
Yeah, like that could be the Ned Stark beheading episode, maybe, you know, for some of like, okay, I'm in on this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
It was the first episode of this series that I was like literally on the edge of my seat, like had goosebumps, like my mouth was open the whole time. And so I definitely think it's the best episode of this series so far. I know we got 4 more left, so I'm terrified for what's to come, but I don't know. I fifth best seems really high just because there were so many great Game of Thrones episodes, and like Brad was saying, we kind of had more time to like get to know the characters and like
Yeah.
really care about them before these like big battles happened. But I mean, I want to give this episode its due. Like it was really, really good. I really enjoyed it, minus, the dragon death, but
Mm.
No
Yeah,
doubt.
I
Well,
agree. I agree with what you guys are saying. Like this one, I mean, I've been harping on it, like, especially this season, but even into last season for anyone that listened, like House of the Dragon is just a whole different beast than Game of Thrones. Like, I mean, Game of Thrones has so many tiny little details and so many different storylines that don't like hit you over the head continuously. Like, you mean someone's not coming right out and saying, like, yes, I burned down this thing, or like you're seeing like who did it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, this is just so like it just beats the viewers to death with like what they're trying to get across. So I'm excited that everyone really likes this episode. I think it definitely was the best one of the series, but top 5 for Game of Thrones, please. Like that is ridiculous. I think people are just kind of forgetting how many like episodes of Game of Thrones, like you guys are saying, were so good, and that they're just excited that this one was
Yeah.
a little reminiscent of like what Game of Thrones used to be.
The
yeah.
episode where the Hound fights like Brianna Tarth, like there were so many great episodes of Game of Thrones, but that's because you had more time there. Like the thing that's crazy is like the 10th most popular character on Game of Thrones might be the Hound. And like look at how invested in his story we were. We were rooting for that guy. If you look at the 10th best, like most popular character on House of the Dragon, it's probably someone who's like barely had screen time. You know, that's how much there were more like threads of characters you cared about and wanted to know where their story was going. So it's just like Kelsey said, it's just so different.
Yeah. I mean, what I'll say is that, out of the other 4 of the top 5, the 4 that are in Game of Thrones, I think the one that was the earliest was Reign of Castamere, and that was in season 4. And whereas in House of the Dragon, we're only 14 episodes into the entire series, and we know that House of the Dragon is going to be 3 seasons total, right? We are at the exact midway point in the series. And so just the story is smaller. So it's natural to want to compare everything, but it's not really apples to apples when you're comparing House of the Dragon to Game of Thrones, is all I'll say.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I agree. And it's actually really surprising. Like, I mean, looking back, like you're saying, this might be like the Ned Stark, episode of like, when he was beheaded, spoilers. But like that happened in season 1, you know what I mean? And that literally changed the way that TV is done and written now. Like, you know what I mean? No characters
Yeah.
are safe anymore. And Game of Thrones changed that. So yeah, you're right. It is really hard to compare, but it was a really great episode, even though I'm a fucking Looney Tune because of
Yeah.
it, but that's okay.
House of the Dragon, to an extent, is a victim of the success of Game of Thrones, and we've talked about that before. But without further ado, let's break it down. Let's break the episode down. So, as the Greens and the Blacks go to war, Daemon is stuck in Luigi's mansion, being haunted by visions of his past and his future. He starts tripping balls, and news reaches Harrenhal that Criston Cole's marching through the Crown Lands, sacking castles, and has tripled the size of Aegon's army. Aemond reveals he's been working with Sir Criston to plan their war strategy, and the king is pissed he's been left out of the loop. Maybe if Aegon spends more time studying High Valyrian and less time betting on the children fighting pits, he wouldn't be getting embarrassed by his brother in front of the small council. Criston and Aemond plan to catch the Blacks off guard by turning their attention to Rooks Rest instead of the more strategically important Harrenhal, effectively cutting off Dragonstone from all allies on the mainland. Rhaenyra tells her small council of the meeting with Alicent, and now that she knows there's no alternative to war, the decision is made to send Princess Rhaenys and her dragon Meleys to burn out Criston Cole and the Green Army at Rooks Rest. Well, the dragons finally unleashed, we get our first dance as King Aegon and Aemond join the battle on their dragons, and Meleys clashes with Sunfire and Vhagar. King Aegon and his dragon get badly burned and fall out of the sky, and it results in the deaths of the Red Queen and the Queen Who Never Was. So didn't want to go too in depth with that final scene because we're going to be talking about it in very big depth right now, but it was a lot. It was a lot.
Yeah, and there's so many different angles to dissect it from too. Like so many different things going on that like, oh man, yeah, I could go forever about this episode. Like just even that like Rhaenys, like yeah, that was terrible. But like to me, that's not even the most interesting angle of what we saw go down in that like scene. Like to me, it's called Aegon and Aemon.
Yeah, well, let's get into it, right? Because you're right. There's a lot of little intricacies that made up that scene beyond just a dragon on dragon fight. So starting off early, obviously, the Greens are planning through Aemond and Criston Cole. They're going to go to Rooks Rest, even though everybody thinks that they're going to go to Harrenhal. And so Rhaenyra finally comes back. She's just been absent for a lot this season, and she comes back. Everyone's pissed off at her. Jacaerys, her son, is really pissed for the first time ever that like they kind of have a little bit of beef. And he's like, what have you been doing? And she says, I inherited 80 years of peace from my father. Before I end it, I want to make sure there's no other path. And now I do. I only have one choice that remains. But Jay still makes good points. Like, dude, we're all here trying to figure out what you want. You haven't told any of us anything. We have no direction. Her counsel is fucking terrible. And he gives a killer eye roll when she's like, yeah, I'll go. And he's like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, all of our allies raise their banners for you. If you die, all is lost, which is exactly what we talked about last episode when she went to King's Landing and risked it all. It's like, you're not understanding the gravity of the things that you're doing here. But all that kind of happens and leads to the everybody coming together. All eyes are on Rooks Rest, this little castle. So yeah, they all get there. The Rooks Rest people, which house, I'm blanking on it, what house is there, but they say that it looks like the Green Army now, it has tripled and has about 1,400 to 1,500 members of all the different houses that have joined them. And Rhaenys comes in and just starts burning them all down. And Criston Cole's ready for it, which I wasn't happy with his competency in this episode. Like,
yeah, like where did all of this strategy and like where does he like come with like all this like we're gonna sneak and do this blah blah. I mean, I think the episode leaned really heavily that this was like Kristen's plan, but clearly it was Aemon's. Like, I mean, he is the one that really understands like war and like is the smartest one and like actually paid attention like growing up because like he always thought that he should be the one that like succeeds Viserys, but like yeah, Criston Cole getting all the credit in this. I'm like, shut the fuck up. And then he raises his stupid head and he can, oh my god, I'm so ready for him to die. It's not even funny.
I thought I was close to putting him as an MVP this episode because I thought like I wasn't thinking. I don't agree with you. I think it is mostly his plan because he seems smart. Like they have wasn't Gawain Hightower, Alicent's brother, who is like his foil, who keeps being like, "I'm not an idiot. We're not going to go out during the day," and he keeps being like, "Okay, we're going to listen to me. It's my plan. We're doing it," and he's right every time. So like it shows that he's not good politically at all. Criston Cole. He's not good because he's a simp and he is sucks when it comes to sleeping his way to the top and all the things he's doing at court. But like he does have battle experience and he's good. Like as a knight, he's really good at this shit. And so he makes Gawain look dumb again as a plan with Vhagar to hide Vhagar. Like when Aegon comes in there and they're all like, fuck, like this was the plan for Aegon to come and put himself in danger. And he like rouses his whole troops with like a whole Braveheart speech. Like they will never take our freedom. Like he does a whole thing and everyone's like, yeah. So I don't know. I think that he did a good job, and he's just doing nothing but amassing victories. They call him the Kingmaker.
Yeah.
Yeah, I unfortunately agree with you, but I'm with Kelsey. Like, he just sucks so bad. I want him to die. I was hoping he hit his head like real hard when he crashed on the ground, but you know.
Yeah, how cool was that? Them fading the black, and like the episode could have ended either time they did that. Like the first time when he hits, because like the drag, like Aegon had like fallen from the sky at that point. That's a really good cliffhanger. Like Cole goes out, he's probably not gonna die from that, but it fades to black, and you're like, damn, that's okay, that's pretty solid. And you fade back in, like you get more, and then they did it a little bit again later, like fade the black, be like, okay, like that's how it's gonna end. Come back in, get more. Like I thought that was great the way they did that.
Yeah, well, it was giving Tyrion in the first season battle where he gets knocked out and he goes to black. It was like the same thing, just going to black and getting knocked out in the middle of a battle and then just waking up and surviving with all the the craziness around you.
Yeah, I think like I think you hit the nail on the head too, like when you're saying like that Rhaenyra's council sucks. Like they make the worst decisions possible.
They
Like the
both
fact,
do. Both councils are the worst.
yeah, both councils like really don't know what the hell they're
They, like,
doing.
don't support their people.
No, like it's terrible. And like when Rhaenys was like, I'll go, blah, blah, blah. Like, why didn't a single person be like, wait, why are they going to Rooks Rest? Like, this clearly is like, there's something else going on. Like, if you want to go and, like scout it out like Bela was doing or whatever, like you should go do that. But like, Vagar is fucking huge. Like, you can't fly around like back behind, like just, just do a little swoopty swoop and be able to see, oh yeah, that's Vagar in this big, huge open clearing in the middle of this forest. Like, I don't know. The whole thing just made no sense for only one dragon to go. And then also like for it to be Rhaenyra, which I know that she has like the most, like, she was like the most battle tested and like her dragon like had been in battle and stuff too. But like, that whole thing just pissed me off so much. It just made no sense to me.
Well, see, I think it made sense up until the fact that it's like, how the fuck did they sneak Vagar over there? Like that's the part where I was like, how did they do that? Because they were keeping tabs the whole time on Kristen Cole and his army, and they saw that he had an army and they didn't see any dragon. So they thought, we're not going to just let, like, the guy that had that castle at Rook's Rest is on the small council of Rhaenyra. And so they are going to protect him. And so they're like, we'll just bring one dragon, and we don't want to take too many risks. We'll do a badass dragon that has seen battle and is old and big. But if it's just troops on the ground, she'll end that real quick.
One, I saw something too where like, and I don't remember this, it must have been before Damon left, but someone was like, if they would have just gone with Damon's plan of sending Damon and Rhaenyra, then it wouldn't have been fine. Like, you mean, and like also too, how did Vagar's big, like, it's a big dragon, but she's slow. Like, you know what I mean? Like, how did all of a sudden she sneak up to be able to attack? I don't know. There's just a lot of things in this episode that like logistically didn't make sense to me.
I think you're nitpicking a little bit with that, but
I don't care.
mean, but you're right about when Damon went to Rhaenys and was like, "Let's go, you and me. It's 2 versus 1. We'll go and fucking kill Vagar." Like, maybe she should have listened to him. Obviously, that didn't happen, but that plan probably would have worked. And I think that it's interesting too how like it just shows the different characters and their bonds with the dragons and just how they speak to them, I guess. Because in the beginning, Aegon on Sunfire, he was commanding Sunfire in English, not even in High Valyrian, which I thought was funny. But when both boys came in to attack Meleys and Rhaenys, they commanded Dracarys, which is like just a fucking go fire blast. Like, and when Rhaenys commanded Meleys, tongue twisters, to attack, she was saying attack, like, which I think she's just so much more battle tested. She's so much smarter and more strategic on the dragon in terms of how she fights, and she knew there were like different ways to attack. And so even though Meleys was smaller than Vagar, like, I think Meleys could have had a good shot of actually killing Vagar because of how battle tested and how strategic Rhaenys was. And just like, I think that saying the attack versus saying Dracarys in itself speaks to that.
Yeah. Do you guys think if Aegon wouldn't have come and it truly was just like a one-on-one, like that there would have been a chance
A chance for what?
For
for Rhaenyra to be
Rhaenys.
Rhaenys to be successful.
No, I don't. I think it would have been worse for Rhaenys because
Yeah,
truthfully, like Sunfire and Aegon did nothing for the fight. Like she would like once Vhagar and Meleys were attacking, like Sunfire was already out. So it wasn't really two, like it was 2 versus 1, but not really.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could argue like that he provided a distraction because clearly Aemon was gearing for him, and like we were talking about, like Rhaenys could have gotten away, like if she wanted to after she killed Sunfire, but yeah, but then too, that was almost like a distraction or like more, I don't know, like it was like a distraction in both ways. That could have gone either way, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
But yeah,
I don't get
so
why Rhaenys didn't just leave after that and call it a victory. Like Kate and I were like kind of debating that. Like
well, the timing of
call it
all
a
of it was
victory.
interesting because at first Rhaenys and Meleys are going, they're burning the troops, right? They send the signal fire arrows and they blow the horns, which is the signal for Vhagar to come out and attack Meleys. All of a sudden, Aemon sees Sunfire flying by, and Vhagar was ready to get up and join, and he goes, "No, wait,"
Yeah.
which was, I think, the first of many things that Aemon did that are a little sketchy towards his brother. So he let Sunfire and Aegon attack without the assist there. So then they get into it. Meleys is clawing the shit out of him, like really messing up Sunfire. Sunfire basically falls to the ground the first time and is just raining blood all over the troops down there, which I thought was freaking crazy and like, I mean, sick, but like cool visually. And then they engage again. Vhagar finally comes up and Aemon says Dracarys, and it seems like Meleys doesn't even really get it. She kind of flies away, whereas most of the Dracarys was on Sunfire anyway.
Yep.
Which leads Sunfire and the King to crash down in the forest. And it looked like, just like you're saying, Brad, that Rhaenys was going to just escape, just go back to Dragonstone. Vhagar was not going to follow them there. Call it a win because we burned part of the troops, got the king out of there.
Yeah.
So why do you think, Kelsey, why do you think she didn't just leave?
I think Rhaenys is, because she's so battle proven and because she was like, I am down for my queen, I'm down for the cause, like I'm gonna do everything that I can. And if there was even a slight chance that she could take out the biggest dragon and like the biggest hurdle to Rhaenyra being on the crown, which is Vhagar, I mean, that truly is, until like another dragon comes that is like bigger or even comparable to her. Like she was like, I'm gonna do what I can, like I volunteered to do this. And it almost like, I saw someone comparing it on Twitter to almost like a samurai mission, like, you know what I mean, where it was like, I'm gonna go, and if I sacrifice myself, I'm gonna do the best that I can. And I mean, she's a true warrior, like both her and Meleys are true warriors, like, you know, they were not going to give up. Yeah, and that just is what makes and I think too, like just storyline wise, that's what makes it even more sad, like, you know what I mean, when you see that, like you mentioned, like you see that final look back and it's like, mama, this is it, like, you know what I mean, this is it. But anyways, yeah,
It was so terrible.
it was tough.
when they look like they're escaping and then Rhaenys commands her to turn back and attack again, and the look that Meleys gives her, the dragon is looking at her like all right, we're doing this shit. Like we're together in this. Like we're doing it together. And I thought that was cool. But then just as cool as that was, it was so heartbreaking when Vhagar, was chomping down on the neck, and she just looks back and it's almost like, I'm sorry I failed you. Like, and it was obviously Rhaenys and Meleys both die, but it was sad too that they didn't like get Dracarys together and just die together, because Rhaenys had to see the look in her dragon's eyes as it died before she went out, and just like that made it so much sadder.
It was heartbreaking. Like it was terrible. But as you were talking, Kelsey, I just kind of thought, like, do you guys think that maybe another reason, like I definitely thought it was because she's like such a warrior and she's like, fuck it, like I'm doing what I can for the cause, for sure. But do you think she was just so like she's been talking so much about like having peace and like let's try to make this like not a conflict. And do you think she was just kind of like, I don't even really want to be involved in this like going forward, like it's going to be so much bloodshed and carnage, like I don't even like I'll go out fighting, but like I'm good. Like I don't want to be a part of this.
I think it was opposite where like because Rhaenyra did do that secret mission and like she was like, okay, we truly tried every single thing, like war is here, like there's no avoiding it. But I mean, I think it could be argued either way.
In the beginning, I thought that she knew that it was a suicide mission, that by turning around, she's like, I'm probably giving myself up, but I'm going to do whatever I have to do because I'm a warrior and whatever. But the more I kind of think about it, and I could be totally wrong, but I feel like she thought that even though the odds were against her, the bond that she had with Meleese, the strategic advantage that she had, the speed, all that stuff, like that, she thought that she could maybe do it. Like, I don't think she thought necessarily that it was a suicide mission.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Like, yeah, I don't think she thought like, I mean, just like, any basketball player, you could be the seventh man on the team. You probably in your mind have to mentally think like, I'm the best. Man, if I was given a shot somewhere else, I'd be the best player on my team. Like everyone has that attitude going in the battle that you're gonna win. Like, I don't think any like athlete or warrior like really goes in thinking you have no shot. You have to mentally psych yourself up. So that's a good point. Maybe she was doing that of like, why not me? Why can't I do this?
She's like the Uncle Rico. She's like, I can throw a football over the coach just put me in state. We Okay, I
On
guess
the
I have a question really quick with all the Dracarys talk. I thought, is it only certain Targaryens? Is that why
It's a
is that
special
why
thing.
didn't okay, so that's why Daenerys was so special because she
Because
was
yeah,
the unburnt.
her brother died by being burned.
Okay, so it's only like just is it ever explained like why some are affected, some aren't? Because it looked like Meleys and Rhaenys went through a lot of fight, like they were getting like burnt, like you know what I mean? But like it didn't seem to really affect them that much as like Aegon at least and Sunfire.
Yeah, I think that it's definitely not a thing that all Targaryens are immune. Like that's definitely not a thing. I don't know if they ever really explained it about Daenerys and why she was able to do it, but like it was definitely an established thing with her, obviously. Um,
Hmm.
I think it's just like the same reason we're to believe that Aegon is not necessarily dead because the dragon kind of just sheltered him from the fall. I think a lot of it is that Sunfire took on a lot of that fire and like the dragons kind of protected the riders through a lot of it. That's my feeling on it though. But
Hmm.
what do
Okay.
you what do you think, Brad?
Yeah, I don't know. What's the line Daenerys had? Like, yeah, you're right. I don't think they ever give an explanation of it. I think the only broach on it, like Daenerys when she's like, yeah, he was no dragon or something. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, it was
Mm.
because he's
like
like,
if
you're
you're
gonna wake the
badass,
dragon. He's like, you don't want to make me mad and wake the dragon. And she's like, shut the fuck up. And then he
yeah,
dies. She's like, yeah, fire couldn't kill a dragon. This dude is not the dragon.
yeah,
But I
yeah.
don't know if that applies to like all of
I think
them.
it's like the elite.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, I do you guys have anything that you want to say? I think we definitely need to talk about like the Aemon
Yeah.
Aegon. Like
Yeah.
that's like such a big part of this scene too.
Yeah, before we get there, just like in general, it was crazy to see when Kristen Cole wakes up and it's just like you hear the ringing in his ears and there's no like music or anything, but you just see like death and destruction and ash and smoke everywhere. And it's just like it really hits home that war is fucking crazy. It's all death. Like it doesn't where we've talked about this a lot, all the people that die for someone else's cause, all that stuff. But truly, like when dragons come into it now, it changes the game entirely because like no one is, I mean, they're gonna be fighting on the field, on the
Yeah.
ground, but as soon as a dragon is flying overhead, like it's done. And
Mhm.
Not a
it is
battle
almost like,
anymore.
yeah, it's not a battle anymore. Like everyone is just collateral damage. Like it does not matter what side you're on, nothing matters. And it reminded me, it's like the aftermath of a nuclear bomb. Like when Kristen comes up and he just is looking up and everything is fucked. And he goes to that one guy, he's like, buddy, like we gotta go save the king. And he's just ash. Like I thought that
Yeah.
was very cool. I don't
Yeah,
know.
it's not a war anymore. It's just genocide. Like there's no battle, there's no strategy. There's like pushing a button and like ending something quickly, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think that's definitely what like we talked about too, of like why Team Black is so much more sympathetic, because they were literally, they were like, they understood this is what was coming. Like, you know what I mean? Yeah, because it's like when Melissa's down there like fucking shit up and like doing fire, it doesn't matter if you're Team Black or Team Green down there. Like if you're in the line of fire, you're in the line of fire. And that's exactly what like they were talking about and trying to avoid. But a part of that scene too, like remember the horse that was like standing there like solo dolo in the middle of like the field, like as he's walking? That reminded me a lot of like after Daenerys burned down King's Landing, and there was like that solo horse too there. So I didn't know if that was like a callback or
It
what.
was.
But
With
yeah, I
Arya,
don't
the
know.
white horse with Arya, which they never explain
Mhm.
or do anything with.
Yeah, so you know, they're like, hey, remember this like scene that you thought was going to be very important? It's not.
Yeah. Pretty
And
much.
kind of talking about like the war stuff, Rhaenyra had a really, really good quote, I thought, while she was talking to Jace about, you know, the Song of Ice and Fire and telling him all this stuff. She said, to unite the realm, I have to send the dragons to war. The horrors I have just loosed cannot be for a crown alone. So it's like she doesn't take it lightly, but she
Yeah.
knows like what's at stake here. And it's just like it's crazy to just see it visually though.
Yeah. And
I
she
love
asked
that line.
a couple episodes ago, she asked, like, this can't just be about me. You know what I mean? If I'm willing to start this war that's going to make thousands or millions of people die just so me personally can sit on the chair, like that's not worth. Like, shouldn't I be doing what's best for the realm, not what's best for just me as a person? But she's kind of emboldened by the Song of Ice and Fire because it's not just about her; it's about the lineage of her family, and it's about stopping what ends up being stopped in one episode and not being a big deal in Game of Thrones. But yeah.
Yeah, it's a little bit of that. It reminds me a little bit of like when Daenerys was, when they were still trying to make her like the sympathetic character, and she was like, I don't want to be the ruler of like, like, you know, Daenerys knew I have 3 dragons. I can end this war
Yeah.
really quickly, but at what cost? And it made you be like, oh, okay. And then eventually, what tipping point do you hit where you're like, yeah, I really don't care. At this point, I'll be the leader of like Bones and Dust. And it like, I think that's the line they keep kind of like tiptoeing with Rhaenyra. Like, was it going to be her son dying? Like, what's the point where, and she still hasn't gotten that. As much as she's like, yeah, we need to go to war, she still isn't like bloodthirsty.
Yeah. Well, to go to what Kelsey brought up earlier, which I think is definitely needs to be talked about, is just kind of the relationship between Aemond now and Aegon, which it seems like Aemond is big mad for being made fun of in the brothel last episode. He is very upset with his brother and really bullied his entire life. But we saw last episode. But there are 4 big things that happened in this episode to me where like Aemond was just kind of like really shitting on Aegon. And I just want your take on their relationship and like what is the end game for Aemond in your opinion, Brad?
I mean, their relationship is done 100%. At the very least, people could debate. I think Aemon was hoping Aegon got. Like, I hope, you know, I think he was watching like actively, I want this to happen. And then even like, shit, if she's not gonna do it, I'm gonna do it myself. Like, I could see some people debating that, but what there's no debate about is Aegon, if he is alive and if he is able to talk, 100% feels that Aemon was coming for him. And if he lives, it's going to throw him under the bus. And I think Aemon knows that and needs to make sure he gets to Aegon before anyone else does. So that's like where I think that's, you know, and like I do worry that it might be too similar kind of with Bran and kind of like when he got pushed out the window and you have that race against time, like, yo, all it takes is him waking up and be like, yeah, that guy did it. Jamie Lannister, he's the one who pushed me. And then Jamie
And he's
sending
fucking
the
his sister.
assassin and all that stuff. Like, I mean, Aegon's king. Like people are gonna believe him, you know. And I think there are a bunch of different interesting angles this could go. If he wakes up and blames Aemon, like who does Cole go with? Who does Aemon said, does Aemon not even go back to the castle and be like, fuck man, I heard my brother's still alive. I need to go recruit like Otto Hightower. Grandpa will tell me like what I need to do right now. We're gonna build up our own cause because everyone's gonna be picking for scraps. Even if Aegon's alive, he's not gonna be in a position that people are gonna be speaking for him. There's just a lot of interesting angles like this go right now.
I agree with that. I think a lot of the times with the king and just the Red Keep and all that, it's all PR. So like you already saw in the previews from the next episode where they drag in the head of Meleese, which is doesn't make any fucking sense to me. And the Greens are just so fucking stupid because it's like dragons are the power of their family. Like that's what makes everybody think that their family is invincible. Like you can't show the fallibility of a dragon and put it up there like a trophy. That's so stupid. But anyway, they show
Especially
that.
because like Sunfire clearly is dead too, right? I
Yeah, but
would
they're not gonna.
assume.
But they don't want the masses to know that, right? So they're like, Meleese, the traitor's dragon, is dead, and King Aegon did this. Like they're saying that in the previews. Like King Aegon did that. So they're already doing the whole PR thing, trying to make it seem like Aegon is this hero.
Are they gonna roll him in like Weekend at Bernie's? Like on the dragon, and he's just gonna be like, wait, like look at him, he's doing fine, everybody. He says hello.
I
No,
think he's in that
I think they
casket
hide
thing.
him, and even if he's, I mean, even if he's dead, like maybe they don't even say anything to the masses, so the masses think he's out there fighting the good fight.
Yeah. Well, I mean, clearly, I think Aemon too was going to finish the job, like to make sure that Aegon was killed, but Kristen
Yep.
stumbled his little slimy way up there.
Yeah, did you? I watched that scene a couple times just to try to figure out what was going on there because it looked like he was already like he had a sword out, but it looked like he was already sheathing his sword
I agree.
before Kristen Cole cried out. But then it also kind of like his
I
vibe made
think
it
that's
seem.
because he saw Aegon and thought he was dead. I think he had his sword out because he was like, I'm gonna kill him, saw him, and then put his sword back. And that's when Cole walked up.
And it was interesting to when Cole's like, where is your grace? And Aemon picks up the dagger, which is the same dagger that the assassin tried to kill Bran, just as a callback to what you just said. The same dagger that has the Legend of Ice and Fire on it when exposed to fire, and the same one that Viserys as the king had and passed to his son, the King Aegon. Aemon grabs that, points at Aegon with the knife, and then just walks off, leaves him for dead, and takes the dagger with him.
Damn.
So crazy.
I don't think there's any way to argue, like, I don't think there's any way to argue that anyone can say that Aemon was not trying to kill Aegon, like, in any way possible. Like, he was not even worried about Rhaenyra or Rhaenys and Meleys, like, when he saw that they were already attacking him, and that once, like, Sunfire comes back up, like, I think he thought it was going down. He's like, okay, cool, whatever. She, like, Auntie took care of it. And then once he came up, he's like, all right, nope, I got to do this. And like,
Yeah.
then maybe he heard Cole coming behind him or something, but I don't think there's any way to argue that he wasn't actively trying to kill him,
The
which
fact
I
that he
think is
made
actually very justified.
the fact that he made Vhagar wait when he saw Sunfire, like that was very telling to me.
It
And
was in the
Vhagar
air
just
of the
plops
night.
back down.
It was like in the air of the night where Phil Collins saw that one dude saw the other guy drowning and didn't help him. That's what Aemon was doing. He was like ready to just watch his brother die and not do anything to help him. And then his brother got thrown like a life raft, and he was like, "Well, shit. Now I'm just gonna actively kill him."
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm sure that's
he
the way the
definitely wants
director
to.
was going for with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I bet you they were listening to Phil Collins when they wrote that scene.
I can feel it in the air. Wait, I was
Well, it's going to be interesting to see, and like that's definitely what to watch for is the condition of Aegon. I mean, I think everyone believes that he is alive. No one thinks he's dead because I feel like they would have established that if he was actually dead. So the condition of Aegon is something to watch for, but then really where their relationship goes with Aemon and him and what happens with that, that's going to be a major one to watch for moving forward.
I just
Mhm.
thought of this. I'm not saying they should do it, but it would be interesting if they kept the audience in the dark for a change. I feel like the audience always knows. We know shit that the characters don't know. We know what Viserys was talking about on his deathbed. Certain characters don't know that. It would be interesting for the audience to be kept in the dark, like the characters are. Like, we're locked out of the throne room. We're hearing different things. He's alive. He's fine. He's dead. Blah blah blah. And we, for a change, like are like, damn, I don't know. This is what it feels like for all the other characters and the council to be like, yo, are you gonna like tell us what's actually going on or not?
Yeah, and that would actually, I would actually really appreciate that because that would be very house like, or that would be very Game of Thrones to me, and I would love that.
Yeah. Well, the scene was crazy. Seeing the dragons tear at each other was not pleasant, but it was thrilling. And it kind of, that scene is what made this episode, be so great, I suppose. But speaking of so great, let's move on to some of our awards for this episode. And starting with the winner slash MVP of the episode. So, Kelsey, I'm curious with you. I want to stay there. Who do you have as the MVP from this
Oh,
episode?
I mean, the one like where like you just like the one that's like plain to me is Vagar and Aemond. Like that's like the slash maybe even Kristen Cole, you could put him in there, like that trio together. But you know what? I'm gonna have to go with the abortion tea and the little witch tea. So I think like the drinks of this episode are the winners because they clearly like for some reason Damon decided like clearly there's some weird shit going on with this witch lady saying that she's a barn owl and like a woman's body. I don't know. Like he's having visions, like he's fucked up, right? Like and then he still drinks this tea and it fucks him up even more. And then for the second time in the same series, we see someone not wanting Kristen Cole's little bastard baby. So I would say the teas are the winners
We got
here.
some freaking concoctions right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's funny though, because last episode Damon was like, I'm not gonna eat those peas, they could be poison. And now this crazy ass bitch that he definitely doesn't trust is like, here, just drink this. Like, all right, whatever.
That's
Whatever's
such a
like
good point. I didn't think of that.
Yeah,
it's
he's
like
very
blood
protective
in
of
there or
himself
something.
until it's
He's like, you know what? I fuck it.
Yeah, whatever.
Vagar definitely I agree with. Obviously, she's badass. She was relatively unscathed after this massive battle, but she was an MVP for me because she's just an old bitch who wants to sleep. And so when Eamon's like, hey, hold on, wait a second, and she just plops right back down, I loved that because that's how I feel. I just want to take a nap,
That was us after the 4th of July weekend for sure.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. Well, Kate, who do you have as your MVP?
Well, I feel like it's pretty obvious, but I did Rhaenys. She was such a G, such a fighter and a warrior. Kind of knew she was going into a losing battle, took on two dragons at once. Like, yeah, I just RIP, gone too soon. Um, really sad about Melise too. That was just like such a moment with those two. It just like brought tears to my eyes. Um, but secondly, I also have Lord Darkland because he read Kristen for filth a little bit and I enjoyed it. Is there no honor left in the world, Cole? You are not fit to wear the white cloak. And then also a G just was like, yep, cut my head off.
Yeah, that dude stands on business. I liked Lord. I got him as one of mine too. Lord Darkland does not play. I
Such
like
a
too when Cole was like trying to clap back at him, and he's like, "All right, well, I'm going to cut off your head. That's a better death than a traitor deserves." And he's like, "Yeah, yours will come in kind."
But that was
yeah,
his
Lord
dad,
Darkland.
right?
That was the dad of the guy that escorted Rhaenyra last episode, which I think it would have been more effective if they at least said his name last episode. So like maybe when we heard it this episode, we would have been like, oh, that guy's tied in with that.
Right.
Because it just seemed kind of out of nowhere. We'd be like, what? My dad? What happened? Yeah.
What if my dad? And it's like, who are you? I didn't even remember who he was until you said that. So thank you.
Rhaenys, though, you're right, she's the best. And we should have seen this coming because we talked in the last episode about how like why is she not the hand of the queen? Like she is the one that Rhaenyra always looks to. She's the smartest one. She's experienced. She is humble. Like we should have known there was something bad coming to her. I really think. But I like to think when she's fighting there, like she's just down for the cause. She's fighting for Rhaenyra. but she's kind of fighting for her younger self too, and like fighting to smash the patriarchy a little bit, because the entire cause is that like it doesn't need to just be a male queen or male king, excuse me. And she's kind of fighting the good fight for that as well. So I like her motivations. Just everything about Rhaenys was awesome, including the way she went out.
I agree. And it was like really disrespectful, and it like really upset me like when she was saying all these great things about strategy, or she was like, I need to go, blah blah, or whatever she was saying, and no one gave a fuck about what she had to say until Corliss walked in. And then all of a
Yeah.
sudden everyone was like all paying attention. And so it
Yeah.
was like, yeah, like even what you're saying, like she was still battling it, as time and time again she proved that like she was the best person to be in Rhaenyra's ear. It's very
Yeah, well,
annoying.
when that one asshole was like, "Why are we listening to you? You're not the hand of the queen," and I'm like, "Yeah, why the fuck isn't she? We talked about this last episode. Why is she not the name of the hand? Like, that's gross irresponsibility as queen for Rhaenyra, which is why I think she could be one of the LVPs for me. But my last MVP though is just the bond between the riders and their dragons. I just think that was so I just love it in general. I love that part of the mythology, but seeing it in this episode really was, I think, kind of special. And when you had those two scenes that are happening at the same time of both Rhaenys and King Aegon mounting up and putting on their armor and meeting up with their dragons, and like they both shared such a great moment. And like Aegon is literally drunk in the scene. He's like going off the rails, and yet he's like sitting there cracking up like with his dragon. His dragon's like nudging him, and it was cute, and it showed that the bond that they really have for each other. So it made it so much more real. Where like if he does survive, which we think he does, like this dragon is protecting him literally with his or her life. I don't know if Sunfire is a male or female, but anyway, you just see like the importance, and I loved that moment of the two of them at the same time. And Rhaenys saying to Meleys, "We're off to battle again, old girl." Like I just thought that was so cool. Um, so yeah, that was a big win for me as well.
Any chance Corliss gets named hand? And like,
Maybe I can see
Daenerys
it.
kind of does that. I'm gonna do what I should have done, when she was still with us.
I
Like,
love that prediction.
yeah, because I can't see anyone else still. Like, her son's the next heir. It's not gonna be, it's not gonna be Jake. So I'm like, that'd be kind of like a nice moment between the two.
Now that you say that, I think that's probably exactly what happens. She's going to feel bad about Rhaenys. He's the only other competent one. Like it's not going to be Daemon, and it's not going to be her son, and it's not going to be those idiots on her council. So who else would it be? Unless it's like Bela or something, But
Yeah, it could be like, I mean, that's someone she try. I mean, she needs someone that's in her corner because a lot of those people obviously aren't.
yeah, another kind of heartbreaking moment of the dragon fight and the death is that Vhagar belonged to Laena for a long time, and so Rhaenys was killed by her daughter's dragon.
Yeah.
That were like Meleys and Vhagar were probably friends,
Grew
for
up
a long
together.
time.
I was thinking, like, I was definitely thinking, I'm like, I'm glad they don't go heavy-handed on this stuff, but I'm like, they could have twisted that knife even a little farther by
Yeah,
being like, these two dragons literally grew up together,
yeah,
I couldn't handle it. There's no way.
yeah, crazy. Well, we talked about winners. Let's move on to some losers or LVPs of the episode. Brad, what do you think? Who do you have as LVP?
No, I'm so glad you asked because I do have an LVP this week, and it's actually there are a trio of
Oh my
LVPs,
God.
and we have a little text thread, that what we chat about, House of the Dragon, what's going on in our lives, and
Sure.
I saved some of these texts that I sent out. I had sent the text and it said, "Hey,
Oh
do you
God.
guys think Allison investigates the Song of Ice and Fire thing out of genuine curiosity? Like maybe asks her son in the Citadel if any, waiting to confirm, this legend." To which, Kelsey was like, "I think it was just a way to show that both characters know for sure now, but it's too late." And then people really went in on me. I don't think that's the storyline we really need. It just highlights that it was a misunderstanding. That's that. I think their bond is so great and they still know each other so well that each one knew the other was lying. I don't think it's necessary. On and on, piling and piling on. And all we saw in this episode is Allison is indeed playing true detective, trying to get confirmation, despite Kelsey Yeah, it's not necessary at this point and wouldn't change
Well, it
it
isn't. And it
anyway.
took 20 seconds. She was like, "Where's your dad's books?" He's like, "I don't know."
Well, she was
No, she
like,
also
they
has
did.
the
I
other
mean,
maester.
I'm not gonna lie.
Like,
This is 2 episodes in a row that I'm watching it, and I'm like, fuck. I'm gonna have to give props to either Kelsey or Brad for being right about something. I swear to
there
God.
were there were three times
Yeah,
like it was
it was.
referenced that that's what Allison, which I mean she's got to ask her son like in the Citadel at this point. Like I don't know if this is text that exists somewhere or if it's just on that dagger, but I disagreed and felt like I'm like I think Allison's going to look for confirmation. I agree with you guys that
But
it
it still
doesn't
doesn't
matter.
matter.
It's
Yeah.
not stopping the war, but she'll know in her heart like and maybe to the point where she'll leave, like she might leave like Team Green if she knows this is all bullshit.
Nah,
But
Like
she has
maybe she
nowhere to
can't
go.
take it anymore.
so listen, I'll give you props again for that. I did not think they were going to waste time by showing Alicent investigating something that was very obvious to everybody watching. But she does say to Lara, she says, the significance of Viserys's intentions died with him. So she's like definitely accepted the fact that it doesn't matter. Like I think she understands now she was wrong, but it doesn't matter. It's not changing anything,
Mhm.
as we knew last week. And I think truthfully they kind of probably just needed something for Allison to do in this episode. But I do think that that's a good segue to talk a little bit about about her relationship with Aegon, because I have a question
Mhm.
for you with that. Is that like, you know, she never really liked Aegon. He always was like, he was raping chicks. Like she had to, you know, stick up for him and, you know, brush that under the rug. Like she was doing all this stuff. Like he was terrible this whole time. But I think she did believe that the dad, Viserys, wanted him to be the successor. And so she kind of gave him the benefit of the doubt because of that and protected him because of that. But do you think now that she realized that all of that was a lie, that she like just truly doesn't fuck with Aegon at all anymore? Because she was talking to him in ways that she had never talked to him before in this episode. And it seemed almost like now that she knows that that whole thing is a lie and it wasn't even Viserys's wish for him to succeed, then he truly is just a fuck up and she doesn't give a fuck about him.
I think that did anyone else get the Tywin callback? The Tywin Joffrey.
100%. I'm the king.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and no king needs to say they're the
Yes.
king.
Yes.
She literally said like you thought putting that crown in your head like made you something special. You haven't put in any of the work that everyone else has. So I agree with you, Noah. Like you would hope the him masturbating outside the
Yeah.
window or like raping girls, like that would have made her, but like I think she was making the point clear, like, man, I really thought like you would check in after this all happened. It's clear like you're not going to, and that's not going to change.
I really
Yeah.
think. Go ahead, Kelsey.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I think it was just such a long succession of like the abortion shit, like, like feeling like a hypocrite, her grandson dying because of it, like, of all of her actions, like the whole thing with Rhaenyra, like finding out that her whole life was this whole thing like could have been avoided because she was a dumbass, like, you know what I mean? Just I think that was just like her breaking point. And to your point, like I don't think she likes any of her kids, maybe a little bit, maybe the girl a little bit, but I don't think she really gives a fuck about them because she was a child
I
when she
think she
had
loves her
them.
daughter.
I mean, the daughter, yeah, I think maybe a little bit, but like still, she not really. Like, I mean, she still made her go like
I was gonna
follow
say
her
she don't
son.
treat her great, but
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know. I think she was just like at this point, I don't give a shit. Laris Clubfoot just saw me take this abortion tea, and I just don't care anymore.
yeah.
That was very poorly planned. She left the Plan B box just out for all to see. That was really bad. I started feeling, I mean, I felt bad for Aegon. Like I really did, that all of his people just, it's so obvious. Everyone thinks he's an idiot. No one takes him seriously. No one wants him involved. Like between the small council thing, between the way his mom talked to him, between his way his brother talked to him, like, and I think that that's credit to that actor. I think is doing a really good job of like, I don't know, like he's an idiot, but I don't know. I felt bad for him a little bit. And when he asked his mom, like, you know, so what can I do? Like, what should I do here? And she goes, do simply what is needed of you, nothing. And he's just like,
That's
damn.
so
I'm like,
forward.
that's such a shitty way to be viewed by all the people when you should be the most important person in the whole realm. So you know, then he pulled the little cat thing, which you could tell exactly what he was gonna do. He had his hand sitting there at that vase, and he started slowly knocking it off the table like a little cat. I thought that was very funny.
I mean, no, you're right. That props to the actor, but like the writing too, the little subtle things they do, like, yes, like that actor has been amazing in the role, but like you get to see things like through these characters' point of view. Like it was so funny to me when Amon says to him and like Valerian, like, yo, you hired this like idiot to be like the King's Guard. And then
Yeah.
like a little bit later, like Aegon happens to glance over him, the guy's like all uncomfortable in his armor, like this is uncomfortable. And you see like kind of Aegon that fuck man, like, yeah, what am I doing? Like I'm surrounded by idiots.
Well, did you see also when Aegon walks into his room and Allison's in there and Allison's like, "Where are the books?" It was like that whole part, and they dismiss the Kingsguard and like they're all trying to walk out the door and they all crash
Yo,
into each other. Like
I
they just,
did not. That's great. I did not notice that.
Really
It's
Mo and
so
Larry.
good.
yeah. I mean, really, he was cooked by Aemon there because he's like, why didn't I know about this? Why wasn't I consulted? And he's like, we thought you had more important things to do, like choosing your own nickname and naming imbeciles to the Kingsguard. It's like that's exactly what he was doing, you know. Yeah, and I think that's perfect. I mean, Aegon is my LVP of the episode, and I think that's pretty obvious because again, he got embarrassed at the small council meeting by his brother. He got dressed down by his mom, called him an idiot. Try to do the only thing he thought was right, which was go into this battle, and he got burnt to a crisp. So I mean, no one really took as many L's. He hopefully, or we think he's alive, so maybe he's not, but no one really took as many L's in this episode as Aegon for me.
I don't know. I mean, if we talk about it like losers, but not of their own design, I mean, you kind of referenced it. It's like it's the dragons. You know what I mean? They're just doing what their writers are telling them to do. And yeah, it's like if they all grew up to like with each other, like, you know what I mean? I don't know. I say it's the dragons.
Yeah. Well, who's your LVP, Brad? Or sorry, Kate, what were you saying?
Oh, I was just gonna say, like, to no surprise, like mine was the dragon deaths also. Like it was just, oh, it was so hard to watch. And like some of the noises that they made, like as they were getting like scratched and stuff, I was like, oh my God, this is horrific. So
God, that blood scene, like you referenced, Noah, was horrific.
Yeah.
How was she still, or he, whatever, how was Sunfire still alive after that? Like, I thought the organs were coming out.
Yeah, that looked, it was that, and that was the first part. And then Sunfire got Dracarys, and then Sunfire got its like wing ripped off. Like, I don't know how it's still alive now, but yeah, crazy. What about you, Brad? LVP?
Oh, it was all the great people that I'm speaking with.
Oh yeah, my bad. Yeah, I chose to block that out of my mind, I suppose.
Straight to repressed memories.
Yeah, no doubt.
Okay,
Well,
but I will say, while we're talking about like predictions, I said Allison was holding her belly funny in the last episode, and that she might be preggers. If you guys want to go back and listen to it.
we said 2 weeks ago that like, because Brad's like, what is there for this character of Kristen to do? And I was like, well, what if she's pregnant? Because, you know, they've been hinting at it for sure. So I'm not giving you any credit. You got credit last episode, Kelsey.
I get it again. I'm giving I don't need it from you. I give it to myself.
That's true. Well, our next category is the cringe moment of the episode. And this one, for me, didn't have as much like direct cringy things as in the past, like Naked Aemond and things like that. But Brad, staying with you, who is what was your cringe moment?
You know, and this is what makes it great. Like, you know, we've talked about how MVP is kind of interchangeable with LVP, and, you know, it just depends on your perspective. But like, I debated Cole as like my MVP for the episode. I'm like, dude, he's tearing it up. He's recruiting all these little armies. Like, maybe he's not making these big splashes, but I'm like, he really is doing the damn thing right now. Like, so he on one hand, I'm like, he's my MVP, but then like when it's all said and done, I'm like, he was my cringe just because he's such a corporate stooge. Like when he sees like Aegon go flying, it's just like, Your Majesty, we must go help the king to that other guy. And
That's
like,
his one job.
goes running up. It's not anymore. He like that's the argument I was making. The king, like he's not the king's guard, because we were like, Kate was
Yes,
saying
he
tell
is.
the king,
He's
he
the
let
hand of the king.
He's the King's Guard and the Hand of the King, both.
Yeah.
No, wasn't the hand of the king, or wasn't the King's Guard now that other dude that he appointed that was all uncomfortable in the armor? That's the
That's
King's Guard now.
no. He is the Lord Commander of the King. He's the head of all the King's Guard. The King's Guard are seven people,
It's the hand.
and he's the Hand.
See, I didn't think he was doing, but I thought he got named hand, and then that position got put off to someone else now.
Well, that's why he's wearing the white cloak. That's why that one dude, Lord Darklin, is like
He's just wearing too many hats.
you know.
No,
Sure.
okay. That makes a little bit different, but he is still like a corporate stooge, and he has it just shows how clueless that character is about things that I'm like, he's been conniving with Aemon this whole time, not knowing Aemon will kill this dude the first second he gets, and he rolls up. We all as the audience are like, damn, Aemon's like about to kill his brother, and then Kristen's just like, is His Majesty the King okay? I'm like, he's such a Carlton, like he's just so like corny and like so like is His Majesty okay? Like he just doesn't get the way things really work, and like his dumb haircut. So at the end of the day, he went from like MVP to just my cringe.
Mine was also him, but it was specifically when he called Rhaenyra the whore of Dragonstone. And I was like, oh, this fucking guy. Because like I also had him as an MVP candidate, and I was like, I can't with this guy. And also the whore of Dragonstone is a kind of cool nickname. I'm kind of here for that. So
No, it's like you can address me as the whore of
yes.
Dragonstone.
Yes, I am. Yes. Kelsey,
And
what
his
was your
beheading was bad too. You sent that like
Yeah,
little
what
clip,
his little
his
like
awkward,
short, what was
beheading.
that? Why'd he do it like that? Yes, that was weird.
I mean, I kind of referenced it earlier, but I think the cringe was just Allison being so careless about her plan BT. Like, especially with Clubfoot, like I'm like, what are you doing, girl? Like that was like so cringe to me. I think there's definitely going to be repercussions from it, but it's like the one person that you should not be knowing all of your business, that you literally got your handmaids out of like your bathtub, like you know what I mean? Like you're doing stuff all by yourself because you don't want him to be spying on you. I don't know. She just was really careless with that whole thing,
I
I
was
thought.
gonna say maybe if I really want to give the writers of the show the benefit of the doubt, like part of me is like, yeah, it's lazy writing. They needed him to like, I don't think they needed that because he already knows everything that's
Mhm.
going on. He knew her and Cole were smashing without him
Mhm.
walking in. He was like, oh, Cole was late to the meeting, huh? So they could have done that. I'm hoping the reason they did that was to show she doesn't care anymore. Like that she is
But she
becoming
looks back
bitter.
at it like she does. Like she looks back at it like, oh shit.
Maybe, yeah. Like I don't think it's good, but I'm like, maybe it's kind of showing
Well,
that she's like, you
and
know
with
what, I used
the
to worry what people think, and now I don't give a damn anymore as much.
but with the maester, she was like, "Oh, I'll give it to the girl, the
Yeah.
recipient."
Yeah, she was lying about it.
She was like
Well,
The
lying.
she's
Maester
not
knew
all in
too. The
all
Maester was like,
out.
okay, please do. Let us know how she's doing.
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
I've
tell
got
me
a
if
friend.
she shits her brains out.
Yeah.
Gonna get the bubble guts, girl.
By the way, did you notice when so early on, like maybe the third episode of season 1, when Otto tells Alicent when she's young to like go comfort the king, his wife just died, and like one of the nice things that Alicent does for the king to like get him to like really like her is she repairs the little like dragon statue, little toy that goes on whatever. So she repairs that for him. And anyway, in this episode, she's just like holding it and drops it and breaks it again. The same one
Oh,
that
I
she
didn't get
repaired.
that.
Yeah. And she's the same one that she repaired in season 1.
Nice. Good eyes. I didn't catch that.
Yeah.
It wasn't purposeful though.
No, it
Like
wasn't.
some
But
people
it's just like I
imply.
think that's showing, the evolution of that character and just like
Mhm.
how she's kind of fallen off a little bit.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, Kate, do you have a cringe?
I didn't really have a good one for this one. I just said Alicent and the pregnancy and like Cole's baby.
Yeah.
Like, ugh, gross.
Nah, I agree with that. Well, I think we should talk. I mean, we'll get into other notes from the episode, but the biggest thing for me is Damon and like obviously I want to talk about the visions and all the things going on there. And I think there's something that's really important, but what is he doing? Like, what is he doing? He's in Harrenhal. Like, I thought he would leave, claim Harrenhal, and then or go there, claim it last episode, then go join everybody and like bring the army back, or then he would make the rounds to the different places, bring the armies together to Harrenhal. Like, he's just kind of chilling there. I don't understand
Well,
why.
he was expecting the army that he was like claiming to be there. And like, so that's why the guy that like, when he's like, who the fuck are you? And the other guy was like, hey, this is the guy that you want me to go get. He's the one that like has the army that he's like trying to get, but it's
Tully.
just that's not there. Yeah, totally. So it's like he's just being all fucked up with his visions and stuff. So he's like not thinking clearly. But like I feel like he feels like he can't leave until he actually has like an army behind him, which it's not there because it's a ghost town,
But it's
literally.
but it's just weird that like instead of going, let's say going to River Run and talking to the Tullys there and then escorting their army back to Harrenhal. He's at Harrenhal, he's sending for them. So the one guy comes to talk, then he has to go back, then hopefully get the army, then Brit, like it just seems like there's so many extra steps. And I don't know why he's doing like I thought he would be going to all the places, getting their armies together, and then bringing them to Harrenhal together. I don't understand why he's doing it the way he is.
Well, and it's so weird too, because Cole is like racking up these places.
Yeah.
You know what I
By
mean?
doing
Like,
exactly that, he's going from one place to the other, picking up the
exactly.
army. Yeah,
And it's like
exactly.
Damon's not doing anything, it seems like.
I
Yeah,
think
and he was doing that without dragons, which is crazy.
Yeah.
Lara's touched on it. I think like Harrenhal is basically like Damon is in Vegas right now, where there's like no windows, you have no concept of time. Like I honestly think, like I was thinking, I don't know, maybe it's just from the, I don't know, for other reasons, but like the fact that the woman that he's talking to is named Alice. I'm like, are they playing off of like Alice in Wonderland? Like, I really think he's in some dream world right now with like no concept of time. And I wouldn't be surprised if he comes out of there and they're like, he thinks he was gone for a week and they're like, dude, you were gone 6 months. Like, I think he's just like in it too deep right now. Or I don't even know if the people he's talking to are real at times. Like, I think they're doing a lot of funky stuff. And I think that's why Laris is like, yo, you kidding me? Like, I took that piece is off the table as far as we're concerned. Like he's in this, like Noah said, Luigi's Mansion right now, where like he thinks time is going at a different rate. I don't think he's getting it right now. I think he's messed up, man. He's drinking the
Yeah.
drinks,
Yeah.
and he's drugged up.
So we see him drink the drink in this one and it really fucks him up, but he had the visions before this, going back to last episode. Do you think that he's having these visions because Harrenhal is haunted? Or do you think he's having this because that one chick, Alice Rivers, has been like drugging him this whole time? Like, is she responsible for everything that he's going through? Or is it just like she's adding to it, in your opinions? Obviously, we
I
don't
would
know.
want to rewatch it and see if she gives him, because he was so like I made fun of him the last time, and he's like, I'm not eating these peas, they're
Yeah.
poison. Like, so I don't know how she would have slipped him. So I would like to go back and rewatch it, and maybe it was like she left a drink on his bedstand.
He calls her a witch in this episode. So
Yeah.
I think they're very vague about like whether she actually is, if she actually has powers, or if she just like concocted some drugs. Like, I don't fucking know. But I think it's interesting because at first I was thinking it was the haunted thing, but now I kind of feel like she's purposely messing with him, and like all this that he's going through is because of her, because she knows everything about him.
Do we get? I've thought about this. Are we gonna get some reference to what's her name? The Red Witch?
I think Melisandre, but I wasn't thinking her. I'm thinking more like
Not her, but
three-eyed.
someone in that group. Remember there was the other witch that comes at one point
Yeah,
in
yeah,
the
yeah. No, but I'm not thinking it's like the fucking the red god or whatever that was, like the night is dark and full of terrors. I'm thinking it's more like Bran or like Jojen and like the weirwood trees and the children of the forest, like that kind of shit.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Well, I
don't
was
She was
wondering
talking about the
how.
weirwood trees a lot and like the
Yeah.
history
Just
behind
those
that.
vibes.
Yeah,
Well, I
like
was
your bed is
wondering.
out there.
Sorry.
No, go ahead. You're like you reference like your bed is made out of it and all this stuff.
Well, like clearly there's like something with Harrenhal in general because Clubfoot was saying like, all this stuff. But like I'm wondering, do you think it's like people that like grew up there or like have that name or like protected from there? And then that's like a form of protection in addition to what Alice is doing? Because clearly she's doing some stuff too. She's got some powers, like whatever. And also like spoiler, but like on Twitter, like I saw that there's like maybe something that references like that she's like kind of team green, but I don't want to like say why like I said that, but like
Yeah, don't
there's
say
like
that.
yeah I won't,
Yeah,
but
go ahead.
Well, like, no, but there's like,
On
I won't say
Twitter for?
exactly. Well, I won't say exactly, but like, whatever. But I'm just wondering, like, if it's like a combination of like all that. I don't, why is it affecting him so much? Like, what about the guy that came in and is like, oh, like, I was vying for Rhaenyra's hand too. Like, I mean, like, he seems fine.
Yeah. Well, going into his because he has like three main visions in this one. And so the first one I think is the most important one. And someone online, this isn't, I mean, it's not a spoiler because we watched it, but someone online went and translated everything that young Rhaenyra was saying in the vision that it was not picking up in the subtitles because he kept being like, speak more clearly. And so I have it written down right here because I think it's really telling with in terms of the character development of Daemon and the things he's going through. But so young Rhaenyra says to him, quote, "It's been said that Targaryens are closer to gods than to men. In my eyes, you were a god, Daemon Targaryen, the prince of the city, the lord of Fleabottom. I was an innocent. You exploited me and abandoned me. You sullied my name at court. You empowered my rivals. You tried to make my ruin. You put me on that throne, and you love me and you hate me for it. You created me, Daemon, yet now you're set on destroying me, all because your brother loved me more than he did you." And that's when Daemon beheads the vision of young Rhaenyra. And then the head says, "This is what you always wanted, isn't it?" And then at that point, it's like, oh, we have a raven and it's whatever. But that was the whole scene there of the things she said, which specifically we were talking about last episode of just like, he's coming to terms with what he did to these people and what he did to make her who she is. And when she talks about being exploited by him and all that, it's a lot.
That reminds me, why does he feel partly responsible for Aemon
I don't think
becoming
that he feels.
Aemon?
Yeah, so that was another one. I don't think that he necessarily feels responsible, but I think that he sees that there's like Aemon is like a mirror version of him. Like Aemon almost looks up to him and the way that he carries himself as Aemon is like, so it's not his fault necessarily, but it reminded me of like Charles Barkley, where Charles Barkley is like, I am not a role model. And that's like Daemon to Aemon. Like, leave me out of your fucking like do your own thing.
Okay, I
But it's
like
like
that.
there's a mirror between the two of them, I think.
Okay, so that's why it's like I influenced you because I was like, he didn't like take his eye. He didn't
Yeah, no,
like
no, no.
none of the reason that he is the way he is, but that makes a lot of sense because he did seem to like think Damon was like a badass when he was like young and stuff. So okay.
And when he turns around and it's actually him, like I think that emphasized it to me at least, is that like that's the mirror where like he sees himself in Aemon and Aemon in himself.
Okay. Yeah, because they reference it on like the After the Throne show, kind of like being like, he's partly responsible for Aemon becoming who he has. And like I was just wondering if there was like a scene when like when he got his eye taken out. Like I couldn't
Yeah.
remember how Damon reacted
No.
when it was that whole eye for an eye argument and stuff like that. So I like that. Okay, he's just like you said, he was a role model to him growing up.
Yeah, I think that was misleading too. I saw that also on the After episode, and I was like, I don't know. I feel like that's a pretty flimsy take there. Because I mean, I remember when Damon cut off what Vaemond Valerion when he's like, your wife is a whore, your children's a bastard, like that scene, and Damon did that, and like they flashed to Aemond in that scene.
Yeah,
Like fuck yeah, like you can
yeah,
tell he kind
yeah.
of looks up to him a little bit. But then other than that, the only scene I think they really shared and spent time together was the dinner scene where they kind of like have a little face off and then Aemond backs down. So I just think that he kind of looks up to him and he probably models a lot of his personality and his being a rogue to the way that Daemon is.
I love that scene. Aemon when he's like raising such strong boys.
Yeah. Yeah. But Damon also sees his ex-wife or his dead wife Lena being a cupbearer when he's sitting there tripping, talking to our guy of the what is it, the Blackwoods? Yeah, the Blackwoods. That was funny, but well, the Blackwood part was funny. The Lena part wasn't as funny. I don't know really why he was seeing her, but I think just like he's seeing all these things that he feels bad about. Not that it was his fault that she died, but things that he had a hand in doing maybe and feels bad about it. But the Rhaenyra one really kind of spoke to me.
I'm trying to remember. Like you mentioned, like that obviously wasn't his fault that she died, but something was going on during the childbirth. I forget. Like they came to him similar to the series scene where they were like, yo, what
Yep.
should we do right here? And
Yeah.
I can't remember like
He was like doing like some strategy stuff, right? Like some more strategy stuff.
No, it was well,
No?
she was begging when she was pregnant, she was begging him to leave. They were in Pentos, and she was begging him to leave Pentos
yeah.
because she wanted to be home at Driftmark with her family and everything while she gave birth. And he was like, "Nah, I don't want to leave."
And
But
they
then
would have
when
had better doctors.
well, that they said that, but then
is
that
the
part-
argument.
that was the
Right.
argument.
But maybe that's why he feels guilty about it. Is like she might have had access to better doctors if I wouldn't have insisted okay, because I was like, there is a reason why he might feel guilty about that.
Yeah, I think that like maybe he just sees his own selfishness and the reason that like he could have left easily. Like it was nothing to him. And really just a reason that she died in some foreign land and not, if she was gonna die, maybe she wants to die around her family and at home. But like it's just his selfishness and for no real reason are these things that are really hurting a lot of other people. Yeah, I don't know. But in that same scene, we see Willem Blackwood, who we talked about last episode, who he's older, but that's the one that was the kid that was vying for the hand of Rhaenyra in season 1, and that asshole bully from House Bracken started talking shit, and he shanked him and killed him. So that was very funny that not only are they like calling back these two houses, but we actually see that character got older. But he's like, I always liked her. She's had the true blood of the dragon. Like that was just cool seeing that dude.
That's right. I didn't get that.
Yeah. Well, we've done our awards. We've talked about that scene. Is there anything else that you want to hit on about this episode as a whole?
We talk about Damon a lot, and it seems like he's really been in this castle for what seems like a really long time. Do you guys think like do we see Damon not there anymore in the next episode?
Shit, the next episode. I think he's there the entire season. If I had to guess.
My God. I'm kind
That's
of
why
like
I'm like, what is he
over
doing?
it. I'm over it. Like I don't know. I don't like that part.
Parker's over it too.
She is. But I agree. I mean, like Damon went from being probably the most compelling character in the entire show in season 1. I mean, really, him and Rhaenyra, the two most interesting and most central characters in the entire show. And I'm probably less interested in the two of them this season than I am of really any other characters. Like I'm fine with fast forwarding some of the shit. Like, I mean, Rhaenyra specifically, she's been absent in the beginning of the season. She was mourning, which I get. They have to show that. The actress did amazing. Emma Darcy did amazing with her kind of nonverbal and the emotion that she was showing. But then she just disappears with this. She's gone for most of this episode. Everyone's like, what is she doing? And then her big scene in this one is talking about the Song of Ice and Fire, which is, to me, falls a little flat because we all know that already.
Yeah.
And cool, she's telling Jace, I guess. But when they're preparing, they're showing the dragons get ready for this big epic battle. And they're kind of cutting with her VO over it as she's narrating the Song of Ice and Fire. Like that aspect of it fell flat for me.
Yeah, I don't know if this makes up for it, but I mean, just playing devil's advocate because I know what you mean. But like in the last episode, that last scene, you could argue that was the most compelling scene of the season. Up into like she's been involved in the best scene of every episode, like her meeting with Alicent, the twins when they're fighting. Like I get what you're saying, but I'm like, she's been around like big.
Wait, what scene in this episode are you talking about?
Well, no, not in this episode. Like I agree with you, but I'm saying like this season I haven't really been checked out on her because like as much as she's been away, like she's been involved at like key points in the storyline. But you're right, like part of it was passive. Like she wasn't really doing anything when the twins are fighting. She was just kind of like in the room. But then like last episode, she was playing like a big role. So, but I agree with you. I thought the monologue was kind of weird. I thought it was big, like really like a letdown. When she's like, they call it a Song of Ice and Fire. We're like, yes, we know this. The audience
he's like
gasping right now.
And
like,
Jace is like, oh wait,
in.
what do you have to like? He's annoyed at her. He's like, Mom, what do you have to tell me? And she goes, it's Aegon the Conqueror's dream. And it's like, right now we're talking about this shit. Like, who fucking cares?
It was weird, especially when she wasn't like about to go off in battle and die. Like she should have told him that before she went to King's Landing.
Yes, she should have.
I thought she should have named. I might not make it back.
She should have named a Hand of the Queen a long time ago. She should have told her successor, Jace, the story a long time ago. Like, I just don't know what the fuck she's doing either.
Just give her one more chance. She's been going through it, but she's checked back in, as she said, like, now I had to make sure that there was no past like way of going peace. Now that there isn't,
Yeah,
like,
that's
I'm all in.
important for sure. And she'll redeem herself. I'm sure of it. But I'm just saying, 4 episodes into the season, like, she could be my LVP of the season so far.
Mhm.
Because she's not there, or she's not doing anything aside
I
from
think
the one. Yeah,
I think though, like, I mean, just similar with what House of the Dragon does, like they're just really driving it home of like, because we know how this ends, like, you know what I mean? We know who Daenerys's lineage is from. So it's like I think they're just really driving home like
do
why
we?
Team Black.
Yeah, I was gonna
Yeah, isn't it from like Aegon's side or no? Because they
We
talk
don't know
about
that.
like Aegon, like and all those things. No,
We don't
like
know that.
Yeah,
oh
it's all
well,
definite.
who's the mad who's the mad Targaryen that
That's
like
her
Jamie
dad.
kills,
That's Eris the second or something
but
like
we
that.
don't know who he's like from.
I mean,
Oh, well then never mind. I guess I just assumed, like, I guess I just assumed, so I don't actually know. So all the people that have read all these things don't come for me. So for me, I assume that like they're showing Team Black's like utter destruction, like, and they really have to drive home like how Damon and Rhaenyra apart are like so weak. That's what I'm getting from it.
maybe. I mean, that's still a cool point. Maybe.
Yeah, I don't know.
So
I could be wrong though.
now that, like Kelsey said that, I've like what like well, I guess now we haven't even talked about freaking like Corlys having a bastard and all this stuff. But I have like a dumb question about the Valerian. The Is it Valyrians, like Corlys's family?
Valerian. Yeah.
Hilarious.
Valerian. So none of that lineage is around come Game of Thrones time that we know of.
Mm-mm.
And we
So
don't know why.
okay.
We
Okay,
assume
I
it's this
wanted to make
war, but we don't know.
right. So at some point, I mean, granted, maybe they are, but they just don't show it in Game of Thrones. But like, we're led to believe like it doesn't look like things are gonna go well for that like family's lineage, like overall. And they're major right now. They're the only other surviving family, like from
Yeah.
Valeria and like all this kind of stuff. So I was just making sure I wasn't missing something. Which, yeah, we haven't even talked about. Corlys has a son out there.
Yeah, I mean, well, as we transition to what to watch for and close our episode today, but one of my top one is my guy Alan that I shouted out in episode 1.
Mhm.
But yeah, they established that he's a bastard of Corlys, and the things Rhaenys says really kind of hammer that home. But Rhaenys at first is commenting about how beautiful his mother must have been, which is just a weird thing to say about the woman that your husband cheated with, potentially, allegedly. But then she says, I know who he is. Alan's past is no fault of his, and saying that Corlys should rise him up, not hide him. So, I mean, especially now that he got the okay to do so and Rhaenys is dead, I wouldn't be surprised if this bastard now comes and claims maybe sea smoke or something like that and becomes a dragon rider on the side of Team Black. But also, like, to me, it just shows how dope Rhaenys is, because this was a perfect contrast to Catelyn Stark.
Yeah.
Because she was okay with the bastard child. She's saying, rise him up, don't hide him. Whereas Catelyn Stark hated Jon Snow dead, like would not allow him to even live at Winterfell once Ned left. And it just shows that contrast there. And we love Catelyn Stark, but not too cool to our guy Jon. And so
There was
that contrast is very evident.
the tweet was so funny. Like there was someone saying like, yeah, talking exactly what you're saying, of like his ass would have been at the wall so quick if it was Catelyn Stark.
That's funny. I didn't see that. That's good.
It's funny that because you guys were saying last week how like Corlys and his wife had the healthiest relationship on the show. Like, so that's extra like cool that you guys had commented on that. And then like a week later, we see, because we
The
probably felt that
cracks.
way about Ned and Catelyn, like
Mhm.
they were the strongest couple on that show. And like, oh, when you pull back the curtain a little bit, you see like, so I thought that was really cool that you guys had just said that. And this week we see another parallel, but also like you just said, know what the differences too.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, my other what to watch for. We talked about the Aemond Aegon relationship, but my other is just Alice Rivers, and just what the fuck she's gonna do if she's gonna keep fucking with Daemon this entire time, and that's gonna be basically Daemon's storyline this entire season is just like stuck at Harrenhal and getting fucked with by this lady, and just reminded me of what season 2 of Game of Thrones where Daenerys was in Karth, and like there's the warlocks there that drink with the shade of the evening, and they just trip out. And then in that finale, they made Daenerys see all those visions of like her future and like the Red Keep burned down, the throne there and the dragon there, and like all the visions she saw just reminded me a lot of that.
There does need to be something. Like, people are so rude in the Game of Thrones universe. Like, she introduces herself at Rivers. Like, really, you're like, oh, a bastard. Like, dude, like, what's the first thing you have to say when you like hear someone's last name is Snow or Sand or Rivers? Like, but I do think that was in there for a reason. Like, why did they feel the audience needed? Like, some of us who like are a little bit like in this universe knew right away when she said Rivers, like, oh, she's a bastard. But why did the show feel the need for like for
But I
Dame to
guarantee
communicate
you,
that?
I guarantee there's I mean, 85-90% of the people watching, maybe more, did not pick that up.
Right, but why did they feel the need? Like, that has to be important. Like, who her parents are or something has to be important, because why does it matter? She's like a witch. Like,
I
why does the
Well,
audience
Kate
need
or
to know?
Kelsey just thinks that this show is so much more heavy-handed than Game of Thrones, and they hit you over the head with the stuff. They're not subtle. They make it very obvious whenever they're thinking something, and that's what this is. Is that what you were going to say, Kelsey? Because
thank you.
in this case, I do agree with you.
But why would even the audience need to know that? You know what I'm saying? Like, I get it, like being heavy-handed and like repeating something and reiterating, but why is that information even
I think
needed?
because it also speaks to what Dane, like the way he reacted to that, speaks to how he is as a character, where she could have just said, oh, my name is Alice, and he's like, oh, Alice Strong, no, Alice Rivers, and then nothing. But Damon is Damon would call your ass out for being a bastard, you know what I mean? Like he's an asshole with that. And then she's like talking whatever nonsense, and he's like, you're a freaking weird woman, like, and calls her a witch. So I just think that's more about Damon than
Okay, so kind of like Jamie Lannister when he like Jon meets Jon Snow in like the back of episode 1, and he is like, "Oh, you're a bastard." Like, okay, I was wondering if it was like, oh, that means like her parents. It's gonna mean
maybe.
who her real parents are, or something that they needed to explain that to the audience. Like, we don't know who her parents are,
It totally could be.
Well, it
but
could just be too like every character, like we hear their last name, and so we like associate like, oh, well, they're from
Yeah.
here, and like here's their parentage, here's their lineage. So
uh,
it could just be like she's not really a part of like a
Yeah, it
bigger.
makes her more mysterious because
Mhm.
she's not beholden to a certain house or like nobility. She's more of a wild card because she's a bastard, and you don't really know what you're going to get with her.
but speaking of things to watch for, that would be, I don't want to say it's a prediction, but we didn't answer my question earlier of is there the possibility that the Red Witch makes an appearance on this show? Just, I'm assuming she's around at this time,
Well, maybe not her, but I think there's like a long lineage of red witches, right? Like there's a
but
whole
it could
bunch
be
of
her.
them.
I mean, they could literally have her.
I really hope that she's not. B, think there's zero chance of that. But D, I mean, based on track record, I'm sure she'll show up next episode, and I'll have to give you props, and I'm going to be pissed about it.
But so you guys would be mad. You guys would feel it was like a lazy thing, like if she ends up being the one who explains the song, because she's experiences it like that. They could play off that. I get what you're saying of like, okay, we don't need callbacks to Game of Thrones all the time, but you could also make the argument of like she knows this story.
Well, this is also a prequel, so she wouldn't explain, you know what I mean? But
She might know it.
I
She might know
hated
that's where this is headed.
in Game of Thrones, I hated when Arya trained with the faceless men, and then it turns out like her master like wore the face of Jack and Hagar, who was in the second season with her, like that criminal, whatever, like the faceless man there. And it just like that's not the way it was. Like they just wanted it was just like fan servicey for me. Like it was definitely a different person. It was not the same person, even though they looked the same. But I really hated that. And so I wouldn't necessarily love if the Red Witches come to this show at all. But if it's specifically Melisandre, I would hate it even more.
Okay. What do you guys
Personally, just personally.
Would you guys like I get it, like fan service is a good way of looking at it. Like I don't know if it would feel like
There's
cheesy
No,
fan service.
there's no reason to bring her in or any of the Red Witches. So I don't think that's happening.
Kelsey.
I mean, I don't really remember that like storyline too much. Wasn't it like Red Witches is like from a certain like religion, right?
Well, I'm talking about Melisandre, like
Yes.
specifically showing up.
I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't see a purpose for it, but I don't know enough about like that, like religion and stuff.
I can't
Yeah,
wait
it's
for
like,
the first
but
episode.
again, I think that it's not like what Alice Rivers is talking about with the werewood trees and the godwoods and all that. Like that's the old gods. So like you have the old gods, then you have the seven, and then like their shit, the Red Woman, like that's something completely different. So like what Alice is talking about is not like that. It's more like the three-eyed raven stuff than it is that.
Yeah, I'm not connecting those at all. It's just like I'm like she is someone that's alive
Okay,
at this
okay.
time.
She was old as fuck.
Like does the show just do it to be like, oh, I bet you forgot, like
Yeah,
you
I
know,
hope
the
not,
shit,
but
and it's around the, and like could be the one who ends up telling Alicent like this is a real, because that's the only person that we know for sure is out there that knows of the Song of Ice and Fire. Because like we talked about, like we don't know if this is written anywhere. So the only other person who might know this outside of Team Black would be her.
interesting. We'll see. Any other thoughts on this episode before we close it up? No? All right, guys. Well, this was fun. It was heartbreaking. It was sad, but it has me hyped for the rest of the series because if this is where it's going now from the halfway point through the end, I think this could be really, really, really good. So anyway, thank you all for bearing with us on this long extended episode of the Geek and You Shall Find podcast. Thank you for supporting Superhero Faces. Make sure to like this video on YouTube. Make sure to subscribe on all the podcast channels, whether you're listening, whether you're viewing. And if you are interested in streaming the Geek and You Shall Find documentary, you are able to do that for free on YouTube, as well as on streaming platforms like Amazon Prime, like iTunes, and all that good stuff. So please support us and make sure you're engaging, letting us know what you think, if we are making stupid points, if we are wrong, if we are right, if you agree. And just having the jokes, because we're always here for the jokes as well. So thank you all for supporting once again. We'll be back at it next episode with next week with episode 5 of House of the Dragon. And yeah, we'll talk to you all later. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Geek and You Shall Find podcast, powered by Superhero Faces. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And follow us on Facebook and Twitter at Superhero Faces, and on Instagram at Superhero_Faces.